My dad sold my future while Grandma gasped her last breaths. I found out in a crumpled letter, stained with her tears. Lily Carter stood frozen in the sterile hallway of Sunset Pines nursing home, the faint beep of machines echoing like a mocking heartbeat. The letter in her hand trembled, not from her grip, but from the weight of its words. Her grandmother, Eleanor, had scribbled it in a shaky hand, the ink smudged as if she'd wept while writing. He took it. Lily, your inheritance, your mother's legacy. He lied to me. The words burned into Lily's mind, each syllable a dagger. Her father, Richard Carter, the man who'd raised her, had stolen what was rightfully hers while her grandmother lay dying. Lily's childhood had been a patchwork of half-truths and whispered arguments. Growing up in a modest Chicago suburb, she'd always sensed the tension between her father and grandmother. Eleanor, her mother's mother, was a woman of steel and grace, a retired librarian who'd amassed a small fortune through careful investments and a lifetime of frugality. Lily's mother, Clara, had died when Lily was 5, leaving behind stories of warmth and a promise that Eleanor would ensure Lily's future. That promise was the inheritance, a trust fund meant to secure Lily's education, her dreams, her independence. But now, at 25, Lily stood betrayed, the trust fund gone, siphoned away by her own father. The nursing home smelled of antiseptic and regret. Lily pushed open Eleanor's door, her heart pounding. Her grandmother, once a towering figure who'd read her tales of heroines and rebels, was now a fragile silhouette against starched white sheets. Eleanor's eyes, still sharp despite her frail body, locked onto Lily's. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I trusted him." Lily knelt beside the bed, grasping Eleanor's hand. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Her voice cracked, torn between love for her grandmother and fury at her father. "I found out too late," Eleanor rasped. "He came with papers, said they were for my care. I signed. I didn't know." Her eyes filled with tears, a mix of shame and rage. "Your mother wanted you to have it. For college. For a life he couldn't control." Lily's mind raced back to her father's recent behavior. New cars, lavish vacations, a sudden interest in business ventures. Richard had always been a charmer, a man who could talk his way out of anything. But this was theft, betrayal, a violation of everything Lily held dear. She kissed Eleanor's forehead, promising to make it right, though she had no idea how. Back at her apartment, Lily dug through her father's lies like an archaeologist unearthing a buried crime. She found bank statements, forged signatures, and emails between Richard and a shady lawyer. The trust fund, meant to be released to Lily at 25, had been redirected to an offshore account. Richard had convinced Eleanor, in her weakened state, that the money was needed for medical bills. But Sunset Pines was fully covered by Eleanor's insurance. The truth was uglier. Richard had gambled away his savings and saw Lily's inheritance as his bailout. Lily confronted him at his sleek new condo, bought with her stolen future. Richard lounged in a leather chair, a glass of whiskey in hand, his smile as polished as ever. "Lily, you're overreacting," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "I invested it. For us." "Invested?" Lily's voice shook with rage. "You forged Grandma's signature. You lied while she was dying." Richard's smile faltered, but only for a moment. "You're young. You don't understand business. That money was just sitting there. I made it work for us." "It wasn't yours to take," Lily shouted. Her fist clenched. She wanted to scream, to break something, to make him feel the weight of his betrayal, but Richard just shrugged, as if her pain was a minor inconvenience. The next weeks were a blur of legal battles and sleepless nights. Lily hired a lawyer, Sarah Nguyen, a fierce advocate who'd seen too many families torn apart by greed. Sarah uncovered a trail of deceit. Richard had manipulated Eleanor's trust, exploiting her illness to seize control. But the law was a slow beast, and Richard's lawyer was slick, delaying hearings with endless motions. Meanwhile, Eleanor's health deteriorated. Lily spent every spare moment by her grandmother's side, reading to her, holding her hand, trying to shield her from the truth that her trust had been betrayed. One night, Eleanor grabbed Lily's arm with surprising strength. "Don't let him win," she whispered. "Not for me, for your mother, for you." Those words became Lily's anchor, her reason to keep fighting. The courtroom was cold, sterile, a stark contrast to the fire in Lily's heart. Richard sat across from her, his suit pristine, his expression smug. Sarah presented the evidence-forged documents, bank records, Eleanor's letter. The judge, a stern woman with a no-nonsense demeanor, listened intently. Richard's lawyer spun a tale of a misunderstanding, claiming Richard had acted in Lily's best interest. But Eleanor's letter, raw and heartfelt, cut through the lies. "Miss Carter," the judge said, her eyes softening as she looked at Lily, "this court recognizes the injustice done to you. The trust will be restored, with interest." Lily exhaled, tears streaming down her face. It wasn't just about the money, it was about her mother's memory, her grandmother's trust, her own dignity. Richard's face was a mask of defeat, but he didn't apologize. He never would. Back at Sunset Pines, Lily shared the news with Eleanor. Her grandmother's smile was faint but radiant. "I knew you'd fight," she said. "You're your mother's daughter." Eleanor passed away a week later, peacefully, with Lily by her side. The grief was heavy, but so was the sense of closure. Lily used the restored trust to enroll in college, studying social work to help others navigate systems that often failed them. She sold her father's condo, donating the proceeds to a local charity for elderly care. Richard faded from her life, a shadow she no longer needed to chase. But the story didn't end in the courtroom or at Eleanor's bedside. It lived in Lily's resolve, in the way she honored her mother and grandmother by building a life of purpose. It lived in the questions she asked herself late at night. How far would you go to protect your family? What does justice mean when the betrayer is someone you loved? Lily's fight wasn't just for her. It was for every person who'd been robbed of their due, for every voice silenced by greed. She hoped her story would inspire others to stand up, to demand what was rightfully theirs, to fight for those who couldn't. What do you think, was Lily right to pursue justice against her own father? Should family loyalty ever outweigh the truth? Share your thoughts. Where do you stand on the line between forgiveness and accountability?